So today's episode dives into one of the most contested phrases in the Constitution, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It's the heart of the birthright citizenship debate.
Right, and it's one of those phrases that looks deceptively simple, but as Dr. John Washington points out, it's been misread for over a century. What struck you most from his argument?
Honestly, the idea that jurisdiction isn't just about being in the country, but about complete political allegiance. That comparison to a tourist obeying traffic laws really landed. Obeying the rules doesn't mean you belong politically.
It's a sharp distinction. And Dr. Washington pushes it further by referencing the 1866 Civil Rights Act and Senator Trumbull's commentary, basically saying only those, not subject to any foreign power, qualified for citizenship.
Exactly. And that historical lens reframes the entire 14th Amendment. Instead of this blanket rule, it was targeted, aimed at freed slaves who had no other allegiance. It wasn't about future immigration waves.
But then we get into the tricky territory of Wong Kim, Arkansas. That case is often cited as settling the question, right?
Yes, but Washington argues the ruling's scope has been stretched. The court ruled for a child of legal residence, not for children born to undocumented immigrants or tourists.
That distinction between lawful permanent residents and others is crucial. Wong's parents were here with permanent domicile. That's a different level of presence and allegiance.
And that ties into the argument about birth tourism. Washington sees this as an exploitation of a misinterpreted clause. He says we're incentivizing people to break the law to gain benefits they're not entitled to.
It's controversial, but he's not alone. Other developed countries have tightened birthright citizenship: Australia, the UK, much of Europe. The US really is an outlier.
Right, and critics worry about creating stateless children, but Washington says that's mostly a myth. Most children would inherit their parents' nationality.
For the rare exceptions, he suggests tailored legislation. So the humanitarian argument shouldn't block a broader constitutional correction.
I also found his point about Native Americans compelling. They were excluded from birthright citizenship initially, not because they weren't born here, but because they owed allegiance to sovereign tribes.
That example really underlines his point: political allegiance mattered more than geographic birth. It's a powerful precedent.
And yet, you have this massive resistance to changing interpretation. People fear chaos, retroactive enforcement, a rollback of rights.
But Washington is clear: it's not about revoking citizenship from current citizens. It's about drawing a firm line going forward. A prospective change, not retroactive punishment.
Still, you can see why it's so emotionally charged. Citizenship feels sacred. Touching it raises questions about identity, fairness, inclusion.
True. But Washington argues that fairness means applying rules equally. Legal immigrants shouldn't be sidelined by those who cut the line.
There's also the question of executive power. He sees the current interpretation as executive overreach, with the State Department essentially handing out citizenship outside of constitutional bounds.
And he calls for Congress to step in, using its enforcement power under Section 5 of the 14th Amendment to clarify what jurisdiction really means.
It would be a major legislative shift, but it's not unprecedented. Other countries have done it. It's a matter of political will.
And perhaps scholarly will too. He challenges legal academics to question orthodoxy, to treat the Constitution as a living commitment, not a rigid dogma.
That's why I found his originalism argument fascinating. He claims the real originalist position supports allegiance-based citizenship, not open-ended jus soli.
So then we're left with this paradox: is maintaining the current view more American because it's inclusive, or is restoring the framers' intent more faithful to our constitutional roots?
Washington clearly leans toward the latter. He sees this as about preserving meaning in citizenship, not diluting it through geographic accidents.
It's provocative, no doubt. But whether you agree or not, it forces us to confront tough questions about identity, law, and the future of the Republic.
And perhaps that's the takeaway here. Constitutional interpretation isn't just about legal text. It's about who we are as a political community.
We'll leave you with this question: should American citizenship be a matter of birth alone, or of allegiance and commitment? Thanks for listening.